Hey guys, Bill here. Quick video. Talking about just sustainable materials in your building and your renovation. Um, there's a lot to cover in here, and I can't possibly cover it all in just a short video. And again, like I mentioned before, things are going to change, right? It's just kind of the nature of technology and advancement we've seen. But talking about sustainability, some of the biggest things that we run into is should I use, this product or this product? The one that comes to mind is flooring. So typically, the most ecological flooring throughout a house would actually be hardwood flooring. Um, it'll definitely last longer. It's definitely the most expensive, but it can be refinished and redone for the next 50 to 100 years for the most part. Your other options would be probably for most people around this area, a tile, luxury vinyl flooring, and LVT. Um, those are the big ones. But yeah, I think if it was my money and kind of just like bang for the buck, you know, well, let me back up. I think if it was my money, I would do hardwoods, and that's what I've done in my own house. Um, let's just say, 20 years ago in North America, we were actually cutting down more trees than we were planting. That has actually changed recently. We're actually planting more trees than we're cutting down. Obviously, there's exceptions to that depending on what it is, but you're going to go ahead and actually not really cause a problem, having hardwood floors. And again, 20 years ago, that was not the case, but thankfully we realized what we were causing. Um, the whole state of Vermont, for example, was almost entirely clear cut at one point. I mean, they literally just strip logged the entire thing. And I think it was at one point, like 100 years ago, I think it was like there was only 20% of forests that were left in the state. And so, I mean, it was like gone, gone. And there was some private properties and stuff like that. For the most part, it was nothing left. Um, they were using it so much for heating, for building, for everything, and so that's what they did. Thankfully, we know better now, and so we don't do that, or we're not allowed to do it anyway. And there's so many better resources to use these days when we do that. For every tree we cut down, they generally will plant two to three in its place, and so we're constantly. It's going to get better and better as time goes on. Um, you can use tile. That's probably my second choice, especially for, let's say, like a mud room, bathrooms, definitely, a kitchen, something like that. That would probably be a good spot for it. Particularly porcelain tile, it will stand the test of time. There's actually a stack of porcelain tile behind the camera right now. And that's probably my second favorite choice. And the reason for these two is honestly just the durability. Um, they will get scratched. They can, tile can get cracked, obviously, but in general, it takes a lot to go ahead and do that if they're installed properly. Um, there are other materials to kind of think about, and variations on this, right? So if you put down a ceramic tile on your floor, which is not recommended, it's a much softer tile than a porcelain, so it has a greater likelihood of scratching. They're both made from like a clay, but it depends how dense the clay is and the surface of it. So ceramic, it's don't put it on your floors. You can get away with it on your shower walls and stuff like that because we're not, tracking in mud and junk on our shoes. But a porcelain will be what we want to use for, that instead of a ceramic. The other option, again, is, let's just talk about hardwoods for a second. So it's called hardwood flooring, right? But a lot of old Vermont farmhouses like mine, we have pine floors down because that was the most widely available tree to cut down. And those will get scratched up pretty significantly, especially if you have pets. The nice thing about it is that a lot of those wide pine floors, they're very thick. Mine need to get refinished because of my dogs, but they're so thick, they've probably been refinished like 3 or 4 times, and they can probably be refinished another 3 to 4. Most hardwood flooring these days, like we're going to put down here, and you'll see videos of that, it's most likely 3/4 of an inch thick. That's kind of just the industry standard. If you went ahead and did like an engineered hardwood, which is, it's not that much cheaper these days. It used to be, but not really the case anymore. That is probably only gonna be like 1/2 inch, maybe 3/4, depending where you buy it. And then a thin veneer. Looks great. It is a little bit cheaper. The problem, you get one finish and that's it. So if your dog scratched it up, if a rock came in, on your boots from the wintertime or whatever it might be, the likelihood of repairing that is slim to none. it has happened to us where we've installed it, and typically what I'll do is I'll typically buy about 25 or 20% more than we need. Some of it is just, we call it the cull lumber, you know, for framing material, and we just can't use it. There's imperfections or whatever. The grain matches a little too closely, and so it looks kind of weird, or there's a pattern to it. But we'll save a bunch more than usual just to use, because I know we're not going to be able to repair that floor. We need to replace that board or whatever it might be. It's happened a lot, actually. The nice thing about hardwoods is that, yeah, we'll still keep some to the side in case something crazy happens. You put down a hot pan on the floor because it lit on fire in the kitchen. Ask me how I know. It'll burn the flooring. You could refinish that section and not have to replace it. So hardwoods have a lot of benefit. Again, like, they are the most expensive, so take that into consideration. You know, I wouldn't want to use hardwoods in a basement or a bathroom. You can. It's hasn't really worked out. I've never seen it really work out, but people do it. You have to be very particular about what kind of hardwood you put down and the installation methods, depending on where you are in the house and how you do it. And then, yeah, I think beyond that, like, my third choice is probably like the luxury vinyl plank flooring. It's definitely the cheapest by far. It goes down super quickly and super easily to install it. It can be very scratch resistant, you know, so it's really good for like an entryway too, or like a kitchen or a downstairs. The problem with that is that a lot of these interlock, right? And so your subfloor needs to be, like, not perfect, but pretty close. You know, we went to an old farmhouse to, you know, check it out and do a consultation, and I mean, the floors were like this, and I'm like, it's not even an option for that product, unfortunately. We would have to almost completely re-level the floor to then go ahead and put that down so it looks good. So there's things to think about. That is probably the least green out of all of the flooring materials you can use. And so that's another thing you want to consider really when it comes to flooring and just the environment. For, let's just say drywall, for example, drywall's pretty good, actually. It's pretty well recycled in Vermont. So we have a few different recycling centers that will take construction debris, and I think it's like 85 or 90% will be recycled into something. If you're doing demo and stuff like that. So if we have to demo, you know, you can't see it on camera, but there's a lot of drywall in the ceiling in the room behind me. You know, there's a couple rooms where we had to demo the ceiling. All that's going to be recycled into something. Most states or most areas of the country, they just have dumps, and that just goes straight into the landfill, and that's it. So drywall's not a bad choice, you know, for this instance. Wood paneling like this, like actual wood paneling and not the sheets of it. That's another great choice to use, you know, for an accent wall or something like that. You know, using like a real stone, that's a great thing to do, like for our fireplace, instead of doing a stone veneer. Again, the one thing I want you to think about is typically they can be repaired. They'll last almost our lifetime at least. Stonework like that is going to last 100 to 200 years easily, especially we're going to do some more on the outside of this house. But it comes at a cost. It's the most expensive way to do things. So you got to kind of weigh the options, you know, the area, the amount, the site access, which products we're talking about. And again, like, this day and age, post-COVID, like, the market's constantly changing. What costs, you know, copper, I think it's gone up over 200% in like 9 months. It's come back down, I think, a little bit from its peak, but, you know, and for most homeowners, it might be a few $100 more. It's not that big of a deal. But when you're building neighborhoods, it's a huge deal, because it's like thousands and tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. So again, like, things will change constantly, and this is really just this day and age. But yeah, as far as ecological materials, just think of your environment. You know, think of the hardwood flooring, the natural stone, the porcelain tile, or ceramic if you're doing it for a wall, if it makes sense. And yeah, I mean, that's really it. That's what we like to use here. And yeah, that's all I got for you guys. If you have questions, have comments, feel free to go ahead, post them below for me. We have the answer away. All right, talk soon.